The first time I realized trouble was coming, it was just after sunrise, when the fog still hugged the pasture and the dew made the gravel crunch under my boots. I'd lived on that ranch for over 30 years, long enough to know every bend in the drive, every fence post, every cottonwood leaning toward the creek. That drive wasn't just a path to my house. It was the road my kids learned to ride bikes on, the road my late wife and I walked on summer evenings, and the road my grandkids now raced down when they visited. So when I saw a bright orange cone planted right in the middle of it, my stomach tightened in a way only long memory can do. By mid-morning, the cones had multiplied, and a laminated sign was zip-tied to a wooden stake. It read, "Private HOA access, no unauthorized vehicles." I stood there longer than I probably should have, the way you do when you're hoping something will explain itself. Then a silver SUV rolled up from the new subdivision that had sprouted at the edge of my land like an invasive weed. Out stepped a woman with sunglasses, a clipboard, and the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. She introduced herself as representing the Homeowners Association and informed me, in a voice sweet as artificial syrup, that my ranch drive was actually HOA property and that I'd need permission to use it going forward. I laughed at first, not to be rude, but because it sounded like a joke. I told her my deed went back decades, older than the subdivision, older than the county road improvements, older than half the board members she probably answered to. Her smile thinned. She said she'd already reviewed maps and that the HOA's attorney agreed with her assessment. I told her she was mistaken. She told me mistakes were expensive. Then she drove off, leaving the cones like punctuation marks at the end of her sentence. Over the next week, things escalated. Letters appeared in my mailbox warning me about trespassing. One afternoon, I came home to find a contractor measuring along my fence line, claiming he was preparing to improve the drive for HOA use. My neighbors from the ranches farther out stopped by, shaking their heads, saying they'd never seen anything like it. I called the HOA office and got transferred in circles until a receptionist finally told me the matter was under review and suggested I comply temporarily to avoid conflict. That was the moment the laughter stopped. I dug out my old metal filing cabinet, the one that still smells faintly of dust and oil. Inside were yellowed deeds, surveys folded so many times the creases felt like fabric, and handwritten notes from surveyors long retired or long gone. I drove into town and made an appointment with the county land office, a place I hadn't visited in years. The building was quiet in the way government offices used to be, with real counters and real people behind them, not just kiosks and screens. The clerk listened patiently as I explained, then disappeared into the back with my documents. While I waited, my phone buzzed with another HOA email, this one threatening fines. When the clerk returned, she smiled and said, "Sir, your boundaries are very clear." She pulled up official plats on a large monitor, overlays showing how the subdivision had been carved out years after my ranch was established. The drive was not only mine, it was explicitly recorded as a private ranch access, with easements clearly marked nowhere near where the HOA claimed. She suggested I request a certified boundary report and offered to have the county surveyor review it for added authority. Armed with that report, I sent a polite but firm letter to the HOA, enclosing copies and inviting them to discuss the matter with the land office directly. The response came quickly, sharper than before, insisting their interpretation differed and warning of legal action. A few days later, HOA Karen herself showed up again, this time with another board member in tow, gesturing dramatically at the drive as if ownership could be willed into existence by pointing. I told them I'd scheduled a meeting at the county land office and that they were welcome to attend. They agreed, perhaps thinking they'd be finally corner an old rancher who didn't know how things worked anymore. The day of the meeting, we sat around a long table while the county surveyor laid out maps, dates, and legal descriptions in plain language. He explained how boundaries are established, how records are preserved, and how later developments cannot simply absorb existing private property because it's convenient. The room grew quiet. HOA Karen interrupted once, then twice, each time being gently corrected. Finally, the surveyor slid the certified map across the table and said, "This drive has always belonged to the ranch." "There's no dispute here." The clerk nodded. The board member shifted uncomfortably. HOA Karen's confidence drained away like water through gravel. Within a week, the cones were gone. The sign disappeared overnight. A formal letter arrived apologizing for the misunderstanding and confirming that the HOA would make no further claims. No fines, no conditions, no permissions required. Just my drive, the way it had always been. The next morning, I walked that road slowly, listening to the birds and the distant lowing of cattle. It felt heavier under my boots, not with worry this time, but with history reaffirmed. Sometimes the comeback isn't loud. Sometimes it's a quiet truth, backed by records and patience, standing firm against bluster. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments where you re-watching from today. I always enjoy hearing from folks across the country.